Today we're going to make some bubble bars. Weirdly, bubble bars isn't something I've really made much, so it's been a good few years since I made any, but I thought I'd give them a try again and just give you any tips that I find out along the way. I comprised this formula myself, so I don't know if it's going to work out. I guess we'll see. What I'm doing is I've given you the formula on Patreon for a 500 gram batch. I am making less here because I didn't have enough SLSA, so I condensed my recipe down to 2 little bubble bars, but if you get the formula on Patreon you'll have the batch size that's larger, but you can always convert it anyway. What you see me adding here is the baking soda. This hardens the bar and dissolves and disperses the other ingredients and creates a bit of fizz. You can do this all in one bowl if you want. What I've done is separate my mix into 2 so that I can have 2 different colours, which is why I'm measuring out in 2 different bowls, because it's much easier to add your colour in the making stage rather than when it becomes a dough. So that's why I'm doing it this way. So I have half of my baking soda in one bowl and half in the other. And then I'm adding SLSA, which is the sodium lauryl sulfur acetate. This is an anionic surfactant that creates a rich foaming lava and bubbles, so you need this to make your bubble bar nice and bubbly. And then you see me adding cream of tartar to each bowl. This helps to harden the bar, and it also helps with the bubbles to become nice and soft and pillowy. And then lastly, you'll see me adding cornstarch, which again helps with nice soft bubbles, and it just adds a bit more texture to the bar. These are all of our dry ingredients that get mixed together to basically create the solid bar, and then we'll measure out some wet ingredients after this to add to it, which bind it all together, help it solidify, and also just aid in a nice experience when using it. Again, with the wet ingredients, I've split into 2 because I'm going to be adding my colour to one of them. The first ingredient we're using is vegetable glycerin. This is a humectant and it's a binder. How much you use of this will very much depend on how humid it is where you live. So this recipe is based on where I live. You may need to up or reduce this dependent on where you are. But I'll go through how to do that later when we're adding the wet ingredients. For now, we're just adding our glycerin to each beaker. After the glycerin, we're going to add some cocamidal propylbutane. This is an amphoteric surfactant and it creates good firm foam and lather, and it will also help to disperse the colour and make sure you don't get that horrible ring around your tub. Then, as part of the whole experience, we do want some fragrance because we want it to smell amazing. So I'm using the strawberries and cream scent from Pure Scented. You can use any that you like, just check the IFRA for the allowed usage rate. And again, I've split the total in 2 so that I have half in each beaker. Then to one of the beakers I am adding some water-soluble dye. You only need the tiniest amount of this to create a massive amount of colour. So be sparing and try not to get it everywhere because it does stain. So I'm mixing that into one of my beakers only to disperse the colour. And then that'll be ready to use. I haven't included this in the percentages because it will depend what you use. Will give you the percentage you need to use. You can use mica, you can use neon dyes, they just won't disperse in the water as much and you'll need more of those than you would this. So just do your percentages after you've decided how much colour and what type you want to use. You can adjust them accordingly. It will usually only be like 0.01% or something like that. Once you've measured everything out, then you just need to start mixing your dry ingredients together. Just run them through your fingers and blend them together really thoroughly so all the ingredients are evenly dispersed in each bowl. Once you've done that, you can add your wet ingredients. Start with the lightest colour first, otherwise you'll stain everything, and just keep kneading it into a dough. Now, this is where you find out if you need more or less glycerin. So I'd say try it as it is first, because it's a reasonable amount, but it's not too much for this recipe. And then if you need more, have a little beaker of, say, 50 mils or 50 grams of glycerin at the side. Make sure you've weighed it so you have the exact weight, including the beaker. And then when you feel that you need a little extra moisture in your bars, pour off a little bit and then re-weigh the beaker. And then you'll know how much that you've added extra into your mix, and then you can adjust all your formula according to that. But hopefully this will work fine for you. You should have a nice pliable dough that isn't sticky. One thing I would say, and I should have done this, is just dust the inside of your scoop if you're doing scoops like this, because it does stick a little bit on the inside. Or you could use a little less glycerin and then possibly it wouldn't. That's probably a factor as well. But I think these have come out fairly well. I think I made a 190 gram batch, and that's made 2 bubble scoops quite perfectly. So that's a good amount, and then you can adjust that as you want. I'm going to leave these to dry. Maybe sprinkle a little bit of iridescent glitter on them, and we'll come back to them tomorrow and see what they're like. Okay, it's the next day and these have firmed up enough, so we're just going to snap a little bit off and crumble it under some running water and see what bubbles we get. And it crumbles really nicely. It's reasonably firm. It was quite humid in the room that I dried them in overnight, but it's not falling apart, so that is good. I'd possibly want it a little bit firmer if I was going to ship it, but otherwise I'm quite happy. You could also substitute some of the glycerin for something like cocoa butter or another hard butter. That would help with firming up the bar. It would also add some conditioning properties to the water, but the water does feel really silky soft and beautiful with this formula as it is, so I'm very, very happy with it. The fragrance is amazing. If you want the formula and the written blog and method and everything for this, it's on my Patreon. Please don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next one.